Guys, it's finally happened. They fixed something I thought I would never see, and it's such like a basic thing, but it's finally here. Not only that, we have a lot more new quality of life changes, and we're talking bugs that have been around for like half a decade finally wiped away. But the big thing, completely new content has arrived with update 37, and I gotta say that's impressive for a game that released over 6 years ago. But there's also one massive huge disappointment that was promised, and I don't think it'll ever be fixed with State of Decay 2. Let's hope though that State of Decay 3 is able to solve that problem. But guys, let's go ahead now and dive straight into the new content, which comes in the form of new missions in collaboration with the Red Cross, where there is a new mission arc where you help a ragtag group survive, and you get some cool new rewards. Now, I'm not going to spoil the missions, but you'll get a radio call, and you'll also have some other stuff. There's about 6 missions in total, and 7 if you end up failing one of the missions, so maybe 7 in total if you fail. And you get some new cosmetic gear, you get some new shirts, a new jacket, and the ability to unlock that bloodmobile via that radio call like I just mentioned a second ago when you finish all these missions. Not only that, but we have brand new traits, which I've been covering this game since like I think 2021, and I haven't ever seen new traits until now, and they are the blood donor trait, which gives you plus 15 to morale, 100% resting, trauma, and HP recovery, and plus 3 levels to cardio. Then the other one is the EMT driver, which gives you the skill to plus 4 to cardio and the ability to call the bloodmobile via the radio. Now, if you're able to complete, as I said, all these missions, you'll be rewarded with all this cool stuff, but the trick will be to get the missions to actually spawn for you in the game. The team over at Wushu said that they are working on these updates and said that they placed a priority on these missions, so hopefully when you get in the game you'll have no trouble getting them. But guys, I do have some other cool rewards I want to talk about, and we do have to pay some bills, so check this out. Guys, if you haven't heard of War Thunder and you guys don't know about this game, it's incredible and it's free. First, if you love vehicle combat, it gets no better than this. This is a game where you control over 2,500 tanks, helicopters, planes, and ships from 10 different nations, and this can be as wide as biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s to fighter jets and battle tanks of today. Not only that, War Thunder offers a variety of game modes, each bringing their flavor of combat realism to the next level. Arcade is fast-paced with vehicle combat turned up. Simulator mode gets rid of the guardrails and gives you the ultimate challenge, and realistic mode offers that blend of intensity, but it keeps it authentic. Mixed with the ultra realistic graphics and authentic sounds, you're missing out if you don't hop in and join over 70 million players who are battling it out today in epic vehicle combat. This game is free, and on top of that, there is a massive bonus available for new and returning players, which contains premium vehicles and an exclusive decorator, and all this is available across PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Click my link below and play War Thunder today. Okay guys, so there was a huge disappointing part about update 37, and I'll touch on that in a few minutes, but one thing that completely surprised me and made up for that failed promise, and I felt this is huge and it's my favorite quality of life change, is the nighttime is much brighter. We're talking pretty drastic improvements. Take a look at this dramatic back and forth between night and day. Now there is a setting that you can go into the menu with, and if you put it on the darker, it goes to this insane dark level, but if you put it on brighter, you can see a huge difference. And I do think that darker might have been what it was before, which is why I gave you that comparison. Now, I kind of had a varying degree of nighttime changes depending on which map I was in and what was happening, but for the most part, that was a big change and I was super happy to see it. But that's not the only big change with lighting, guys, as now flashlights legit light up like the whole house. It's almost like exaggerated. It feels like, because it's almost like, dang, like they took the car lights on the headlights and they just used that as the flashlight now. And I think this is a welcome change, as I now get to go into a house, fight a plague heart, and I won't be doing it blind. So for me, this was a big quality of life change and one of my favorite ones of the whole group. Now, the second biggest part of this update is one that I've already touched on exclusively in another video, but I'm going to give you guys the cliff notes if you missed it. That's on the new Curveballs menu settings. Not only that, we also got new curveballs as well. But first guys, now there's a new curveball menu, and to put it simply, there is all these new sliders and they let you fully customize customize your curveball gameplay. First, you can completely turn this thing entirely off and never have it spawn if you don't want. But if you want curveballs in your game, you can set this in a few ways. You can go all positive curveballs and have like a legit dev approved cheat code throughout your gameplay, or you can go all negative and make your game much harder by dealing with nothing but miserable negative curveballs. Think of like zombies that are just harder to kill. You can then, depending on how you go, you can really go whatever way you want. You can even be neutral if you want and keep it where it's at, but mess with more modifiers. Then another thing you can do is up the frequency slider, which adjusts how often you get these curveballs occurring. Like I mentioned, you can set it to never spawning and it'll never come out, or have it constantly coming in a rapid pace. And then finally you have the impact sliders, which the more you raise it determines the strength and duration and even the range of the curveballs. In a previous example, I showed how I went on a special loot run with Zeds dropping loot left and right with the positive curveballs just stacked up all the way. And then another example, I showed how brutal it was just to do nothing but negative curveballs with the intensity slider at its max. And when I did that, guys, I definitely had some very hairy situations. Now, you don't have to go into extremes like I did, because I was mostly doing that for science. But the cool thing is that these new curveballs can really be modified in any way that you want. And if you decide that you want to play with all positive curveballs and play this game how you want, you can do that, because this is a sandbox. No one's gonna judge you. But if you want to make the game more miserable beyond belief, you can do that as well and have a blast like I tend to do, or like just die a lot, which might not be a blast for you. But overall, I'm just a really big fan of these curveball changes, and I definitely think they were much needed. Now, surprisingly though, we ended up getting 2 new curveballs, and they are both awful. And I mean that in a good way, as they are super negative curveballs that really spice up the game, especially Bangernomic. This thing is like, on the surface, it doesn't even seem that bad. Your car accelerates slow, it says, there's no brakes, and then you have heavy fuel consumption. And you go, that's not that bad, right? Well, guys, like when I did this, my car wouldn't accelerate at all. You all know how dangerous that can be in the zombie apocalypse and in this game. Look at that. It's ridiculous how slow that is. This is by far one of the most dangerous curveballs you can get. And keep in mind, guys, I did not have the intensity slider turned up on this, so it was just neutral, like standard difficulty. Oh, and then like having the no brakes, which I had, it actually wasn't that bad, because I was able to do this little circle drift thing and it slowed the car down enough. But by far, I think for me, this one's one of the more dangerous curveballs you can get. Now, the second new curveball is really bad too, but sadly, I think this one is bugged. It's called Smokestorm, which essentially kills all your visibility. I did get this like several times on several communities, and really nothing happened. But I've seen this thing in action. Here's like a basic screenshot. You can see that everything around you will be completely gone and you can't see anything. And this is something that is going to be really horrendous to deal with. So 2 of these curveballs I think are some of the worst and some of the most that you have to be prepared for. But overall, I really think they're fun, but they'll bring on that excruciating gameplay. With that, we got a lot of really cool small quality of life changes. And like I mentioned on the onset of this video, there's some bugs that have been wiped from this game completely that could have led to your death in the past, and they're gone now. But before I talk about those, the quality of life changes that were really surprising, or at least there was one that was really surprising, was a nerf. It's a new water drag change. This isn't even a quality of life change. It's just a terrible thing. And I left me a little stunned. Take a look at the driving through water and how slow I'm going. I mean, this is brutal. I guess this was kind of to make the game more realistic, I suppose. But for me, this was like, really took something to get used to. And I've been really comfortable zipping through water for years in this game, so keep that in mind. Of like, you like see a juggernaut and like you're in this big pool of water, you might want to avoid that or you will definitely die. But one awesome new change besides that, which that wasn't awesome, is a new mini map marker that will always now indicate where your home base is. I think that's awesome. Not having to no longer have to pin it from your map in real time. That can be a good thing when you're running for your life at times, like I typically am. There's also now a new threatened enclave prompt, so you don't accidentally ruin a relationship by hitting something you're not supposed to. You can now enlist followers from your community screen, which then means that they'll follow you or they'll come to you and you don't need to find them. And I think that's a really cool little change. Another life-saving change is canceling out of failed grapple. So sometimes when you tried to grapple in the past, you'd be stunned and then a Zed would bite you, which could be lethal if it was a blood plague zombie. But now when you fail, you can dodge immediately if you have the stamina. I can't tell you how many times this almost killed me, so I think that's another huge change. Another zombie change is when they would lunge at you, even if you dodged, you would still be bit, but they fixed this bug finally. There was times where zombies could even lunge to you from the roof, all the way from the ground, and it would literally get you like it did in that clip that I just showed you right there. And that's probably another one that's also come close to killing me in the past before. But speaking of dying, when you die now in the game, your community member will now be shown on the map as in the zombified corpse. And this was a much needed change to retrieve gear that you had lost and, well, of course, put that poor existence of that community member to a final end. And then we have a host of other changes that I'm going to quickly list out here. There's a disengage from locked doors now. You can just simply walk away. A toggle to get rid of cinematic kills. There's more trunk space now for a few vehicles or a few more vehicles that didn't get an update, like the Bloodmobile, the ambulance, and some other trucks. There's a new curveball adjustment to the gargantua mutation. And finally, what's almost an inexplicable change that really baffles me, the major boss that's in this game, the Black Plague Heart, now has frequent expulsions, meaning that you can't continuously melee this thing over and over like I was doing before, as you've seen in my previous videos, because now it'll do that little explosion thing and it'll be frequent all the time. So now you can't just sit there and kill it to death. That is a bummer because that thing was hard enough. Keep in mind, when you're doing nothing but melee on that thing, like, you're already dealing with all the Zeds coming to kill you as it is. So wow, like, that fight is just gotten harder than it was already. And that brings me to the last thing, guys, that was truly disappointing. And I reported this to you guys a few months ago. The developers at Wushu, who have been the ones working on these State of Decay 2 updates for a while now, have said in the past in a live stream that they were working on zombie spawns. Even on Discord, they said this and they confirmed it, but ultimately they decided it was too big of a task to take on and they just felt like they couldn't do it. And they actually had a pretty cool outline on how they wanted to tackle this, but it sucks that they weren't able to, because this would have been one of the biggest core changes to this game that I think a lot of players, including myself, would have loved and said, hey, this feels like a legit zombie apocalypse. Because truthfully, the game can definitely feel a little bit arcadey at times when, like, the zombies are just randomly spawning out of completely nowhere. So it was a big bummer, but I feel like it doesn't take away from all the other glorious changes that they had in this update. And it was a lot. It was a lot of stuff, and mostly all positive, except for the drag change and the Black Heart change. I feel like I could have done without those, but the night change for me by far was my favorite, and I definitely feel it's a bit of a game changer, to say the least. And now I feel like the question has to be asked now. Is this the last update, or I shouldn't say last, but the final updates for State of Decay 2? It really feels like we're towards the end now with State of Decay 3 on the way, and I feel like what is possibly left at this point? What else can they do with this game? I'm not sure. I'm looking forward to whatever else they got planned, but it's been really cool to see this game updated so many years down the road. This is almost like how old school games were, and to see Undead Labs kind of continuingly forward, just keep updating it and doing their thing, is just awesome. So kudos to Undead Labs and the team at Wushu for doing some awesome stuff. But if you're looking for a new fun experience, guys, I want you to check out War Thunder by clicking that link below. But check out my latest breakdown on State of Decay 3's trailer. I had a lot to say, and I think there's a lot of stuff you may have missed.